I walked into the divorce thinking it was the end of my marriage, but I was carrying a secret no one knew. When he finally looked at me, his face went pale. 7 months pregnant. And that was the moment he realized he didn't just lose a wife. He lost everything. The glass-fronted building of Sterling and Co. Law Group reflected the late afternoon sun like a mirror, forcing Evelyn Hart to squint as she stepped inside. At 33, she'd learned how to walk forward even when her chest felt tight with fear. Courage, she'd discovered, wasn't about confidence. It was about choosing not to turn back. Today was meant to be an ending. The lobby smelled faintly of polished wood and espresso. Evelyn checked in at the front desk, her voice calm despite the storm of emotions churning beneath her composed exterior. She wore a long sapphire blue coat, carefully buttoned, carefully chosen, not for warmth, but for concealment. 7 months of silence, 7 months of recovery, 7 months of carrying a truth no one expected, least of all her husband. The receptionist finally looked up. Conference room B, Mr. Kingsley is already inside. Evelyn nodded and walked down the corridor, her heels echoing against marble floors lined with framed awards and legal accolades. This place felt like Marcus Kingsley's world, cold, precise, built on power and control, a world where vulnerability was treated as weakness and love was conditional. She paused outside the door, drew in a breath, and pushed it open. Marcus sat at the head of the long walnut table, flanked by two sharply dressed attorneys. At 40, he still carried the polished confidence money could preserve. His dark hair was immaculately styled, his tailored suit undespicably expensive. When his eyes lifted and landed on Evelyn, surprise flickered, quickly masked by practiced indifference. He had expected her broken. Instead, she walked in steady and composed, her shoulders squared, her gaze clear. She looked healthier than she had in the final months of their marriage, months marked by criticism, disappointment, and words that had carved deep wounds into her self-worth. "Evelyn," Marcus said smoothly, "let's make this quick." She took her seat across from him. Beside her sat her attorney, Diane Keller, a woman in her late 50s with sharp eyes and an even sharper reputation. Diane gave Evelyn a reassuring nod. The meeting unfolded mechanically. Assets, accounts, properties. Marcus was generous, almost eager. He knew why. He wanted this finished so he could move on with Lydia, the younger consultant he had introduced to the world barely weeks after asking for a divorce. Evelyn said little. She had already agreed to everything. She wanted no penthouse, no vacation home, no lingering ties, just enough to start fresh. As Diane slid the final papers across the table, Marcus leaned back, studying Evelyn with a narrowed gaze. "You look different," he said. "Are you seeing someone?" The question hung heavy with entitlement. "That's no longer your concern," Evelyn replied evenly. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing more. "All that's left is your signature," Diane said. Evelyn leaned forward. As she leaned, her coat shifted, just slightly. The unmistakable curve beneath the fabric was revealed. The room froze. Marcus's pen slipped from his fingers and clattered against the table. His attorneys exchanged confused glances. Diane remained silent, her expression calm. "What is that?" Marcus whispered. Evelyn sat back, unbuttoned her coat, and let the truth stand on its own. "I'm pregnant, 7 months." Color drained from Marcus's face as he shot to his feet. "That's impossible. We tried for years." "They said difficult, not impossible. You were the one who decided I was broken." The words struck harder than any accusation. Marcus stared at her, memories flashing across his features. The fights, the bitterness, the night he had called her useless. And then he asked the question she had known was coming. "Whose is it?" Evelyn met his eyes without flinching. "Yours." The silence that fell deafening. Marcus believes this revelation changes everything, but Evelyn is about to prove that motherhood doesn't mean surrender. Marcus sank back into his chair as if his legs had suddenly forgotten their purpose. His mouth opened, then closed again, disbelief twisting his sharp features into something almost unrecognizable. That can't be right, he said hoarsely. We tried for years, Evelyn. Specialists, treatments, nothing worked. Evelyn folded her hands calmly over her belly, a protective instinct she no longer tried to hide. It worked, she said simply, just not on your timeline or under your conditions. One of Marcus's attorneys cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. Perhaps we should take a short recess? No, Marcus snapped, eyes never leaving Evelyn. I need answers. When? Evelyn's voice was steady. Before you moved out. Before you started bringing Lydia to events while we were still married. Do the math. The reality hit him in waves. A child. His child. The very thing he had claimed she could never give him. This changes everything, Marcus said, his tone shifting abruptly. We can't finalize the divorce, not now. We have a responsibility to the baby. Diane Keller leaned forward, her voice cool. Legally, Mr. Kingsley, pregnancy does not invalidate divorce proceedings. Marcus ignored her. His focus was locked on Evelyn, desperation creeping into his eyes. We can fix this, he insisted. We can try again. Start over, for the child. Evelyn felt a strange calm wash over her. She had rehearsed this moment countless times in her mind. No, she said, we're not starting over. You're making a mistake, Marcus shot back. A child needs both parents, a stable home. This child will have both parents. What they won't have is a marriage built on contempt. Marcus stood again, pacing. You can't shut me out. I won't allow it. I'm not shutting you out. You'll have visitation, legal arrangements, support, everything proper, but I will not be your wife again. His face darkened. You're doing this to punish me. I'm doing this to protect myself, she said quietly, and my child. For a moment, Marcus looked lost. Then anger flared. What about Lydia? What am I supposed to tell her? Evelyn rose from her seat, slowly, deliberately. That's not my problem. She reached for the pen. Evelyn, wait, Marcus pleaded, panic seeping into his voice. I was wrong. I said things I didn't mean. I was under pressure. We can go to counseling. I'll do better. She paused, memories rushing back uninvited. Cold nights, silent dinners, doctors' offices where she was treated like a malfunction. The night he'd said, "What good are you if you can't even do this?" She looked at him now, not with anger, but with clarity. You don't change because you regret hurting me. You change because you recognize your behavior was wrong, and you don't. That's not true, he insisted. You're only here because I'm carrying what you wanted, not because you love me. The truth landed hard. Evelyn signed her name. The ink dried quickly, final and irreversible. Diane followed with her signature and slid the papers across the table. Your turn, Mr. Kingsley. Marcus stared at the documents as if they were a verdict. I won't sign, he said weakly. If you don't, Diane Ray, the court will finalize it without your cooperation. Minutes passed. Finally, Marcus picked up the pen with trembling fingers and signed. Evelyn buttoned her coat and stood. All future communication goes through our attorneys. As she reached the door, Marcus called after her. I'll leave Lydia. I swear. We can raise this baby together. Evelyn turned back one last time. You won't leave her. She fits the life you want. Just remember, she'll never give you what I am. She walked out without looking back. Outside, the sky burned gold and rose as the sun dipped low. Evelyn rested her hands on her belly, feeling a gentle movement within. Her phone buzzed. Diane, it's done. You're free. Evelyn exhaled, a shaky laugh turning into quiet tears. Free! For the first time in years, the word felt real. But freedom, she knew, came with new challenges, and Marcus Kingsley was not the kind of man who accepted losing control. Evelyn believes the hardest part is over, but freedom soon brings unexpected battles. The apartment Evelyn rented was nothing like the luxury high-rise she had once shared with Marcus. It sat above a family-owned bakery in a quiet neighborhood where mornings smelled like fresh bread and children's laughter echoed in the courtyard below. The staircase creaked, the walls were imperfect, and the space was small, but it was hers. Sunlight streamed through the living room windows, landing on half-assembled furniture and open boxes. Evelyn moved slowly, one hand braced against her lower back, the other resting instinctively on her belly. 7 months pregnant meant every task took longer, but she didn't mind. Each small effort felt like proof of her independence. She had created a simple nursery corner near the window, soft, neutral walls, a second-hand crib, freshly painted white, and a knitted blanket gifted by a neighbor she barely knew but already trusted. It wasn't grand, but it was warm. Her days settled into a gentle rhythm: morning walks, online design work for small clients who appreciated her creativity instead of dismissing it, evenings spent reading parenting books or talking quietly to the baby growing stronger inside her. She had expected loneliness. Instead, she felt peace. That peace followed her into the women's health clinic she now visited, a modest practice painted in bright colors, filled with soft music and the sounds of babies crying and mothers laughing. The receptionist greeted her by name, a small kindness that meant more than anyone realized. "Miss Hart, Dr. Reyes will see you now." Dr. Daniel Reyes looked up from his tablet as Evelyn entered the exam room. He smiled easily, warmth radiating from him in a way that immediately put her at ease. "How are we today?" he asked. "We're doing well," Evelyn said, settling onto the exam table. "Very active. I think the baby's training for something." Daniel chuckled. "That's a good sign." As he checked her vitals and listened to the heartbeat, he talked, not just about medical facts, but about life, about rest, about balance, about trusting her body instead of fearing it. "Everything looks excellent," he said finally. "You're doing an amazing job." The words hit harder than she expected. Evelyn swallowed emotion. No one had said that to her in a long time. Before she laughed, Daniel hesitated. "May I ask something personal?" She nodded. "I noticed you always come alone," he said gently, "and you changed your name on your file. Are you safe?" The concern in his voice made her chest ache. "I'm safe," she said. "I'm divorced. The baby's father and I aren't together. It wasn't healthy." Daniel nodded slowly. "I'm sorry you went through that. Starting over takes strength, especially now." That evening, as Evelyn cooked dinner in her small kitchen, she realized she hadn't stopped thinking about his kindness. It wasn't romantic, just human, respectful, something she had forgotten could exist. But peace rarely lasted long. Marcus began calling. Voicemails piled up, apologies one day, accusations the next. Flowers appeared at her building, extravagant and unwanted. She gave them away without opening the cards. When he showed up in person, she refused to buzz men. Then Lydia appeared. Evelyn was leaving a cafe when a tall woman with flawless makeup stepped into her path. "You must be Evelyn, the ex-wife." Evelyn held her ground. "What do you want?" Lydia's smile was sharp. "To tell you to stop manipulating Marcus with a convenient pregnancy." Evelyn felt anger rise, but kept her voice calm. "We're divorced. His choices aren't my responsibility." "You think a baby makes you special?" Lydia scoffed. "We're getting married. You're just the complication." Evelyn smiled softly. "I hope you're happy." She walked away, leaving Lydia stunned. The encounter shook her more than she expected. At her next appointment, Daniel noticed immediately. "What happened?" he asked, guiding her into his office instead of the exam room. The words spilled out. Marcus, the divorce, Lydia, the fear that still lingered. Daniel listened without interruption. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. "Evelyn," he said gently, "this may be inappropriate, and you can say no, but would you like to have dinner sometime? Not as your doctor, as someone who respects you." Her heart skipped. She hadn't considered dating. Not now, not pregnant, not healing. But looking at his honest expression, she found herself nodding. "Yes," she said, and with that simple answer, something shifted. Evelyn believes she's finally safe, but Marcus is losing control, and new feelings are beginning to surface. The restaurant Daniel chose was small and unassuming. tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop on a quiet street. Warm lights glowed through the windows, and the scent of garlic and fresh herbs drifted into the evening air. It wasn't extravagant, and that alone made Evelyn feel more at ease. Daniel arrived right on time. He opened the car door for her, made sure she was comfortable, and never once looked impatient when she moved slowly. Those small gestures meant more than he could know. Dinner unfolded easily. They talked about ordinary things at first. Favorite foods, childhood memories, embarrassing moments that made them laugh. Daniel told her why he became a doctor, about losing his father young and learning early that time with the people you love is never guaranteed. I didn't want a career that forgot people, he said. I wanted one that remembered them. Evelyn shared her own story, how she used to paint, how she'd given it up because Marcus called it impractical, unnecessary. Daniel frowned. "That's not someone who loved you," he said gently. "That's someone who needed to control you." No one had ever named it so clearly before. By the end of the night, Evelyn realized something startling. She felt light, not guarded, not performing, just present. When Daniel walked her to her door, he stopped a respectful distance away. "May I kiss you?" he asked. She nodded. The kiss was soft and careful, filled with consideration instead of possession. When it ended, Evelyn felt something stir inside her. Hope, fragile but real. But peace was never allowed to settle for long. 2 weeks later, a legal notice arrived. Marcus was filing for joint custody before the baby was even born. He was demanding the child carry his last name. Worse, he claimed Evelyn's unstable lifestyle made her unfit to make decisions alone. Evelyn sat on the couch staring at the papers, her hands shaking. When Daniel arrived that evening, he found her crying. "We'll fight this," he said firmly after reading the notice. "He doesn't get to rewrite the truth." "What if he wins? What if he takes my baby?" Daniel knelt in front of her. "He won't. And Evelyn, there's something I need to say." He took a breath. "I love you. I know the timing isn't perfect, but I love you and I love this child. When you're ready, I want to build a life with you." Her tears turned warm. "I love you too," she said softly. Labor began during a thunderstorm. Rain lashed the windshield as Daniel drove her to the hospital, calm and steady, guiding her breathing through every contraction. The labor was long, 14 exhausting hours, but Daniel never left her side. Nurses assumed he was her husband. Neither corrected them. At 4:41 p.m., Evelyn's son was born. They named him Noah James Hart. When the nurse placed Noah on Evelyn's chest, the world fell silent. Everything that had broken her, everything she had survived, it all led to this moment. Daniel stood beside her, tears in his eyes. "He's perfect." 2 days later, Marcus arrived at the hospital unannounced. He stopped short when he saw Daniel seated beside Evelyn's bed. "What is he doing here?" Marcus demanded. "Being where I want him to be," calmly answered Evelyn. "You can meet your son if you respect this space." Marcus hesitated, then stepped closer. When he held Noah, something in his expression softened. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'm sorry for everything." Evelyn nodded. "We'll do what's best for Noah." Marcus looked at Daniel. "Are you planning to replace me?" Daniel met his gaze evenly. "No, I'm here to support Evelyn and this child. That's all." After Marcus left, the tension lifted. Months passed. Daniel officially moved in, not as a savior, but as a partner. Marcus dropped the custody suit. They built a workable co-parenting arrangement. One evening, after Noah fell asleep, Daniel knelt and opened a small velvet box. "Will you marry me?" he asked. Evelyn smiled through tears. "Yes." Evelyn's world is finally full, but unresolved truths still linger. Life settled into a new rhythm, one Evelyn hadn't planned, but one that felt unexpectedly right. Noah was 3 months old when the reality of motherhood truly set in. Sleepless nights blurred into early mornings and time seemed to fold in on itself. Yet even in exhaustion, Evelyn felt grounded. Daniel shared the weight without ever making it feel like a favor. Midnight feedings, diaper changes, pacing the living room with a fussy baby. He did it all with quiet patience. Marcus kept his word about stepping back legally, but he didn't disappear. Every other Saturday, he came by to see Noah. He never stayed long. He brought books, toys, and once an awkwardly large stuffed bear Noah ignored completely. Marcus always looked uncomfortable in the small apartment, as if unsure where to stand or how to exist without authority. One afternoon, as Evelyn prepared a bottle, Marcus finally asked the question hanging between them. "Are you happy?" he said quietly. She glanced over her shoulder and smiled, not politely, not defensively, but genuinely. "Yes, I really am." Marcus nodded slowly. "I ended things with Lydia." Evelyn paused, surprised. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," he said. "She gave me an ultimatum, her or my son. That told me everything." He looked down at Noah, who had wrapped his tiny fingers around Marcus's thumb. "I spent years chasing the image of a perfect life," Marcus continued. "Turns out I was blind to the real one standing in front of me." Evelyn said nothing. She had learned that some realizations had to settle on their own. Later that night, Daniel came home carrying takeout and a tired smile. Noah was finally asleep, and for the first time all day, the apartment was quiet. Daniel nodded. "How was it?" Evelyn replied, "Different. He's changing, or at least trying." Daniel reached for her hand. "That's good, for Noah." Weeks later, Daniel officially adopted Noah as his son. The courthouse ceremony was small. No speeches, no drama, just signatures, a judge's warm smile, and one powerful sentence. "You are now legally this child's father." Evelyn cried harder than she had on her wedding day. Marcus attended. He stood in the back, hands folded, eyes fixed on Noah. When it was over, Marcus approached Daniel. "Thank you," Marcus said quietly. "For being the father I couldn't be." Daniel shook his head. "You're still his father. I'm just another man who loves him." That moment closed something painful and opened something new. 3 years passed. Evelyn gave birth to twins, a girl, Clara, and a boy, Ethan. The house filled with laughter, chaos, and tiny shoes scattered everywhere. Daniel thrived as a father, patient and steady even when the nights were long and the days relentless. Marcus visited less often now. Business still ruled much of his life, but when he came, he was present. No phone, no rush. On Noah's 10th birthday, Marcus arrived early. He watched from the porch as Daniel helped Noah light the candles on his cake. Later, as the party wound down, Marcus pulled Evelyn aside. "I used to think love was something you controlled," he said. "You taught me it's something you earn." Evelyn smiled. "We all learn eventually." As Marcus left, Evelyn returned to her family. Daniel was pushing Claire on the swing, while Ethan tried, unsuccessfully, to climb the slide backwards. Noah rode his bike in circles, laughing. This was her life. Not perfect, not easy, but earned. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, Evelyn realized something profound. Her story hadn't changed because Marcus lost her. It changed because she chose herself. Evelyn's journey seems complete, but the past has a lot of final lesson to teach. Years softened the sharp edges of Evelyn's life, but they didn't erase the memories. They reshaped them. Pain no longer ruled her thoughts, yet certain moments still carried weight, especially when Noah began asking questions no child could avoid forever. It started one quiet evening as Evelyn tucked him into bed. "Why don't you have the same last name as Daddy, Marcus?" Noah asked innocently. Evelyn paused, smoothing his hair. She had always known this moment would come. "Families can be made in different ways," she said gently. "Some are born together, some choose each other." Noah thought about this. "But Daddy Daniel chose me." "Yes," she smiled, "and that's very special." The next week, Marcus called. "I think it's time," he said, "for us to talk, all of us." They met at a quiet park, neutral ground. Daniel came too, not as protection, but as support. The air was crisp, leaves crunching underfoot as Noah played nearby. Marcus didn't waste time. "I owe you both honesty," he said. "I've spent years pretending I lost you because of circumstances. That's not true. I lost you because I valued control more than love." Evelyn listened, arms folded, not defensively, but thoughtfully. "I used to think providing money was enough, but watching Daniel raise Noah taught me something painful. Love is presence, and I wasn't present." Daniel spoke carefully. "Regret only matters if it leads to change." Marcus nodded. "That's why I'm stepping back even more. I won't confuse Noah. I'll always be his father, but I don't need the title to matter more than his peace." Evelyn felt something settle inside her. Closure didn't come from apologies, it came from acceptance. Life moved forward. Daniel and Evelyn married in a simple ceremony by the lake where they'd taken their first walk together. Noah carried the rings proudly, beaming like he'd been entrusted with the most important job in the world. Marriage didn't change their love, but it strengthened the foundation beneath it. Challenges still came. Twins tested patience, work-life balance stretched thin, but they faced everything together, without fear, without silence. One evening, years later, Evelyn found herself alone in her art studio. Canvases lined the walls, bold, expressive, unapologetic. She painted again, not for approval, not for validation, for herself. Daniel watched from the doorway. "You know," he said, smiling, "Marcus once told me he thought you were fragile." Evelyn laughed softly. "I was, until I wasn't." Daniel stepped forward, wrapping his arms around her. "You didn't break," he said. "You transformed." On Noah's 18th birthday, Marcus attended quietly, older now, humbler. As Noah blew out the candles, Marcus leaned toward Evelyn. "You were right. Leaving me was the bravest thing you ever did." Evelyn smiled. Staying would have been a mistake. Later that night, as laughter filled the house and memories echoed through every room, Evelyn stood on the porch watching her family, chosen, earned, loved. She thought back to the woman who once hid behind a coat in a lawyer's office, terrified of her own future. That woman no longer existed. In her place stood someone whole, someone free. Evelyn's story is far from over. Life had a way of testing peace just when it felt earned. The call came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Evelyn was in her studio, dabbing deep blues onto a canvas, while the twins napped and Noah worked on homework at the kitchen table. Her phone buzzed once, then again, an unfamiliar number. She'd almost ignored it. "Miss Hart?" a woman's voice asked when Evelyn answered. "This is Rebecca Sloan from Kingsley Holdings." Evelyn's chest tightened. She hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in years. "I'm calling regarding Marcus Kingsley," Rebecca continued. "There's been a medical emergency. He listed you as an emergency contact." Evelyn closed her eyes slowly. "Is he alive?" "Yes," Rebecca said, "but it's serious." The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and quiet regret. Marcus lay pale against white sheets, a monitor humming steadily beside him. He looked older than she remembered, thinner, worn down by years of relentless ambition. When his eyes opened and found her, surprise flickered, followed by relief. "You came," he said weakly. "I came for closure, honestly." Marcus nodded. "Fair. A heart condition, undiagnosed, ignored. Work had always come first. I don't have much time," he said quietly, "and I need to fix something before I run out of it." Evelyn folded her arms. "This isn't about money, Marcus." "I know. It's about Noah." Her breath caught. "I've amended my will. Everything meant for him goes into a trust. Education, healthcare, whatever he needs. Daniel is the trustee." Evelyn studied him carefully. "Why?" "Because he's the father Noah runs to," Marcus said simply. "And because I finally understand what I lost." Silence stretched between them. "I don't expect forgiveness," Marcus added, "but I want Noah to know I loved him, even if I learn how too late." Evelyn nodded slowly. "I'll tell him the truth, age-appropriate, honest." That night, she told Daniel everything. He listened quietly, then pulled her into his arms. "Whatever happens," he said, "we face it together." Marcus passed away 2 weeks later. The funeral was small. No headlines, no grand speeches. Just a man who'd built an empire and only learned its cost at the end. Noah cried. Evelyn held him, answering questions carefully. Daniel stood beside them, steady and present. "Did he love me?" Noah asked softly. "Yes," Evelyn said, "he did. He just didn't know how to show it at first." Time moved on. Years later, Evelyn stood in a gallery filled with her artwork, raw, powerful pieces inspired by resilience and rebirth. Her name was printed on the wall. People admired her work not because of who she'd been married to, but because of who she was. Daniel squeezed her hand. "You built this." "We built this," she corrected. That night, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, Evelyn reflected on how close she'd come to losing herself once. She hadn't just survived. She had become. Evelyn believes the past is finally laid to rest, but a hidden truth left behind by Marcus is about to surface. 3 months after Marcus's funeral, a thick envelope arrived in the mail. Evelyn recognized the handwriting instantly. Her stomach tightened as she carried it into the kitchen, setting it on the counter as if it might bite. Daniel noticed her hesitation. "You don't have to open it," he said gently. "I do," she replied. "If I don't, it'll own space in my head forever." Inside the envelope was a letter and a small leather-bound journal. The letter was short. "Evelyn, if you're reading this, then I ran out of time. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking you to understand." The journal explains everything I never had the courage to say out loud. "Do what you think is right. For Noah. Marcus." Her hands trembled as she opened the journal. Page after page revealed a man she had barely known. Marcus had written honestly about fear, inadequacy, and the crushing pressure to appear perfect. He wrote about the night he called her useless and how the shame haunted him. About Lydia, not as a great love, but as an escape from feeling powerless. Then Evelyn reached the pages that changed everything. "I knew about the pregnancy before the divorce was finalized." Her breath caught. He had suspected. He had seen the medical paperwork in her bag weeks before she revealed the truth. But he said nothing. Instead, he pushed the divorce faster. "I was terrified," Marcus wrote. "If the child was real, it meant I was wrong about you, and I couldn't face that. Losing you felt easier than admitting I destroyed the best thing in my life." Tears blurred the ink. He hadn't left because she failed him. He left because he failed himself. Daniel sat quietly beside her as she finished the journal. "This doesn't change what he did," Evelyn said softly, "but it explains it." The question loomed. Should Noah ever read this? Weeks passed before she decided. On a quiet evening, she sat with Noah at the kitchen table. He was older now, old enough to sense truth, but young enough to need protection. Your biological father wrote some things down about his mistakes, about you. Noah listened seriously. Was he bad? He asked. Evelyn shook her head. He was human, and sometimes humans are afraid. She didn't give Noah the journal, not yet, but she promised she would when the time was right. The weight lifted. Closure didn't mean erasing pain, it meant understanding it. That summer, Daniel officially adopted the twins, too, uniting the family legally and emotionally. Their home echoed with laughter and arguments and everyday life. One evening, Daniel found Evelyn in the studio staring at a blank canvas. "What are you afraid of painting?" he asked. "Failure," I admitted. "Success, too." Daniel smiled. "And you're doing it right." She painted through the night. The finished piece was bold and unfiltered, a woman standing between shadow and light, refusing to disappear. The gallery called 2 weeks later. They wanted the painting as the centerpiece of her next exhibition. Evelyn stood in the doorway of her home later that night, watching her children sleep, listening to Daniel's quiet breathing beside her. She realized something profound. She no longer needed the past to make sense. She had built a future strong enough to carry its weight. Evelyn believes she's finally free of unanswered questions. But life has one more test waiting. Success arrived quietly, without warning, without permission to feel ready. Evelyn stood in the center of the gallery the night before her exhibition opened, surrounded by her own work. The walls were filled with pieces born from pain, resilience, and reinvention. Each canvas carried a fragment of her story, though no one else knew the full truth behind them. She should have felt proud. Instead, doubt crept in. "What if this is luck?" she murmured, arms crossed tightly. "What if they see through me?" Daniel stood behind her, hands resting gently on her shoulders. "They already see you," he said. "You just haven't accepted it yet." The opening night was crowded. Conversations buzzed. Wine glasses clinked. Strangers stood before her paintings, interpreting emotions she hadn't consciously painted, but somehow had poured onto the canvas anyway. One woman stood before the centerpiece, the woman between shadow and light, and whispered, "She looks like she survived something." Evelyn swallowed hard. Then she saw her. Lydia, standing near the entrance, impeccably dressed, scanning the room like she owned it. Evelyn's heart skipped. She hadn't seen Lydia since that confrontation years ago. Time had softened her sharpness, but the arrogance lingered. Their eyes met. Lydia approached. "I didn't expect to see you here," Lydia said coolly. "I didn't expect to be," Evelyn replied calmly. Lydia gestured toward the paintings. "You've done well for yourself." Evelyn smiled. "I had to learn who I was first." Something flickered behind Lydia's eyes. Envy, perhaps. "I thought Marcus was the reason you disappeared," Lydia said. "Turns out you were just getting started." Evelyn didn't respond. She didn't need to. As Lydia walked away, the doubt loosened its grip. Later that night, Noah tugged on Evelyn's sleeve. "Mom," he whispered, "that lady looks sad." Evelyn knelt beside him. Sometimes people don't know how to be happy for others. As the crowd thinned, the gallery owner approached her. "We've sold half the collection," she said, "and a buyer wants exclusivity." Evelyn's breath caught. On the drive home, silence filled the car. "Are you scared?" Daniel asked. "Yes," Evelyn admitted, "and excited." "That's growth," he smiled. But the next morning, fear returned. A message arrived from the gallery's legal team. Contract revisions. Clauses about creative control, deadlines, exclusivity. Words that felt uncomfortably similar to another life she'd escaped. Evelyn froze. Old instinct screamed, "Don't rock the boat, be agreeable, Don't lose this. She spent the day restless, anxiety buzzing beneath her skin. That night, she stood in the doorway of Noah's room, watching him sleep, remembering a version of herself who had stayed quiet for far too long. She returned to the kitchen, contract in hand. "I'm saying no," she told Daniel. He looked up, surprised, but proud. "Even if it costs you the deal?" "Yes," she said firmly, "because I won't build success by shrinking myself." She emailed her conditions: clear boundaries, full creative control, realistic timelines. Then she waited. 2 days later, the response came. "Agreed." Evelyn exhaled, laughter bubbling up through relieved tears. She hadn't lost her chance. She'd claimed it. That night, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, Evelyn realized something she hadn't expected. The greatest victory wasn't the gallery. It was the moment she trusted herself. Evelyn believes she's mastered her fears, but life has one final mirror to hold up. The invitation arrived folded inside a cream-colored envelope, handwritten and unexpectedly formal. Noah School, Family Reflection Night. Evelyn reread it twice, her chest tightening for reasons she couldn't immediately name. The event was simple enough. Students would present short reflections about their families, where they came from, who shaped them, what home meant to them. Still, something about it unsettled her. That evening, Noah sat at the kitchen table, paper spread out, chewing on the end of his pencil. "Mom," he said slowly, "can I ask you something without you getting mad?" Evelyn set down the dishes. "Of course. Why didn't you stay with my first dad?" The question landed softly, but its impact was anything but. Evelyn took a seat across from him, steadying herself. Daniel, sensing the moment, stayed quietly in the background. "I didn't stay," Evelyn said carefully, "because sometimes loving someone isn't enough if they don't treat you with kindness." Noah frowned. "But he loved me." "Yes, and he loved you very much, but he didn't know how to love in a healthy way back then." Noah nodded, absorbing this. "Does that mean people can love you and still hurt you?" Evelyn felt the weight of the truth. Yes, and that's why learning when to walk away is important. At school, parents filled the auditorium. Nervous children clutched note cards. Evelyn sat between Daniel and the twins, her hands folded tightly in her lap. One by one, students stood at the microphone. Then Noah's name was called. He walked onto the stage, took a breath, and began. "My family is made of people who chose each other," he said. "I have a mom who's brave, a dad who listens, and a first dad who taught me what not giving up looks like." Evelyn's breath caught. "Home," Noah continued, "is where you're safe enough to be yourself." Applause filled the room. Evelyn felt tears slide down her cheeks, not from pain, but from release. Later that night, after the children were asleep, Evelyn sat alone on the porch. Daniel joined her, handing her a mug of tea. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes," she said softly. "I think I finally am." But healing wasn't a straight line. The next day, Evelyn received a message from a number she didn't recognize. "This is Lydia. I think we should talk." Her first instinct was to ignore it. Instead, she replied. They met at a quiet cafe. Lydia looked different, less polished, more human. She fidgeted with her cup. "I was angry at you for a long time," Lydia admitted, "because you walked away and I stayed, and I lost myself trying to win something that was never real." Evelyn listened, calm. "I don't want anything from you," Lydia continued. "I just wanted you to know you were never the problem." Evelyn nodded. "I know." As Lydia left, Evelyn felt no triumph, just peace. That night, Evelyn stood before the mirror, studying her reflection, not searching for flaws, not bracing for judgment, just seeing. She whispered something she had never said out loud before. "I trust myself." And in that quiet truth, she knew the past no longer had power over her. Evelyn believes she has finally closed every door but one. Last choice remains. The offer arrived on an ordinary morning. disguised as an email marked urgent. Evelyn almost deleted it. The subject line read, International Residency Program, Final Review. Her heart stuttered. She opened it slowly. The gallery consortium she had partnered with was offering her a 6-month artist residency in Florence. Studio space, housing, international exposure, the kind of opportunity that could redefine a career. The catch sat quietly at the bottom of the message. Participants must relocate for the full duration. Evelyn stared at the screen, mind racing. Florence wasn't just far, it was another life, another version of herself she had never allowed herself to imagine. That evening, she told Daniel. He didn't react the way she expected. You should go, he said immediately. She laughed nervously. Just like that? Yes, he said, because you won't be leaving us. You'll be expanding yourself. But the kids. We'll make it work, Daniel replied. They'll visit, I can work remotely part of the time, and they'll see what courage looks like. The next conversation was harder. Noah listened quietly as Evelyn explained. So, you won't be here? He asked quietly. I'll still be your mom, she said softly, just with a different view outside the window for a little while. Noah thought about it. Can I come see you? Of course. Then you should go, he said. You always tell me not to be scared of big dreams. Evelyn turned away before he could see her cry. 2 months later, she stood in a sunlit studio overlooking terracotta rooftops. The air smelled like paint, stone, and history. For the first time, she created without deadlines, without expectations, just instinct. She painted women in motion, women stepping forward, women unafraid of taking up space. Letters from home arrived weekly, drawings from the twins, long emails from Daniel, voice messages from Noah describing school projects and new ideas. She missed them fiercely, but she didn't feel guilty. She felt aligned. Near the end of her residency, a local journalist asked her during an interview, "What inspired your work?" Evelyn smiled. Learning that survival isn't the same as living. On her final night in Florence, she stood on a bridge watching the lights ripple across the river. She realized something quietly profound. She wasn't proving anything anymore. She was simply being. When she returned home, the reunion was messy and loud and perfect. The twins clung to her. Noah wouldn't let go of her hand. Daniel kissed her like time hadn't passed at all. That night, as they lay in bed, Daniel asked, "Do you want more?" Evelyn considered the question, not as a challenge, but as an invitation. "Yes," she said, "but not at the cost of myself." Daniel smiled. Then we're already winning. Evelyn closed her eyes, heart full. She had once believed happiness was something fragile, easily taken. Now she knew better. It was something she built, choice by choice. Evelyn has learned who she is, but every story needs its final truth. The house was quiet in the early morning hours, the kind of quiet that only came after years of noise. Evelyn stood by the kitchen window, watching sunlight creep across the backyard where worn grass marked the places her children played most. Toys lay scattered, shoes by the door, evidence of a life lived fully, not perfectly. She wrapped her hands around a warm mug and breathed. This was freedom. Not the dramatic kind she once imagined, not escape or reinvention fueled by desperation, but a calm, steady sense of belonging within herself. Later that day, Noah brought home a school assignment titled My Hero. Evelyn found it folded neatly on the counter. My hero is my mom, he had written, not because she's famous or strong all the time, but because she chose what was right, even when it was hard. She taught me that love should never make you feel small. Evelyn pressed the paper to her chest, tears slipping freely. That evening, the family gathered in the backyard for dinner. Daniel flipped vegetables on the grill while the twins chased each other through the grass. Laughter drifted into the warm air. At one point, Daniel caught her watching them. "What?" he asked, smiling. "I was just thinking," she said, "how close I came to missing all of this." Daniel turned serious. "You didn't miss it. You fought your way to it." As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in gold and soft pinks, Evelyn felt a quiet certainty settle deep in her bones. Her past no longer defined her. It informed her. Later that night, when the children were asleep, Evelyn returned to her studio. One final canvas waited, blank and patient. She had avoided it for weeks, unsure how to begin. Now she knew. She painted a woman standing at an open door. Behind her, shadows lingered, but they no longer reached her feet. Ahead stretched light, wide and endless. She signed her name in the corner without hesitation. When the painting was finished, Evelyn stepped back and smiled. It wasn't about Marcus. It wasn't about loss. It wasn't even about survival. It was about choice. Months later, the painting sold to a private collector. The gallery asked her what she wanted to title it. She didn't hesitate. "I chose myself." On the 10th anniversary of the day she walked into that law office, Evelyn returned. Not out of pain, but reflection. She stood across the street from the building, coat open, posture relaxed, nothing to hide. She smiled softly and turned away. Some chapters didn't need revisiting. That night, as Daniel wrapped his arms around her on the porch, she rested her head against his chest and listened to the steady rhythm of a life built on mutual respect, trust, and love. "I used to think happy endings were something you arrived at." "And now?" Daniel asked. "And now I know there's something you choose every day." She had once been a woman afraid of the truth growing inside her, afraid of what honesty might cost. Now she was a woman who knew her worth, a mother who led with courage, a partner who was cherished, a human being who had survived the worst and emerged whole. And as the stars appeared one by one above their home, Evelyn knew, with complete certainty, that this wasn't just the end of her story. It was the beginning she had always deserved. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of your own strength, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. More powerful, life-changing stories are waiting, and the next one might feel like it was written just for you.